With the global reveal just less than a week away that will announce the 2023 ESO chapter and other details, another clue has dropped for content creators in the form of a letter sent out. The letter reads, Proxy, the tide of fate swirls around you with glorious fury, and has chosen you to serve as its surrogate in a crisis most perilous. The future of at least 2 worlds hangs in the balance. Your talent for changing destiny had been noticed, hence the reason for this letter. Many paths lead forward, but only one ends with the survival of Nern. At this particular moment in this specific instance, you must be the thread that keeps reality itself from unraveling. I shall summon you as soon as the inescapable fortunes of consequence show me where we are needed most. lKrmX the Wise. Interestingly, there was a noticeable mark on the letter, and with some blacklight, the mark was revealed to be an insignia of Hermaeus Mora, the tentacled Daedric Prince of Knowledge and Fate, which is actually alluded to by the letter saying the tide of fate swirls around you with glorious fury and has chosen you to serve as its surrogate. This may be referring to a storyline, potentially, where instead of purely working against the Daedric Prince's plot, this time around, the Vestige or the player, you're now helping Hermaeus Mora with their plot. Not exactly sure who Proxy is, or if that's just another name for the Vestige, the player character, in the Elder Scrolls Online. And what's even more curious is who wrote the letter. lKrmX the Wise sounds like an Altmer or High Elf, perhaps with the Sigil Order. Time will tell exactly what this character is. More interestingly, I think the encouraged use of a blacklight to reveal the insignia of Hermaeus Mora could be alluding to the city of Blacklight, the capital of House Doran, although this poses a potential problem to what many people have predicted as a result of several event and dialogue hints, with NPCs who have been referring to the Telvanni Peninsula, even including the city of Necrom, or hey, maybe I won't shave my head this year because we're going to Hammerfell at last for that Redguard chapter, right? However, I think Blacklight could still be in play as a future visible zone or city, as according to the 2022 studio director letter, chapters will be part of a multi-year story arc rather than standalone, isolated year-long format storylines. Furthermore, I suspect that with some of the data mines done by ESO Model Viewer that's apparently found Necrom furnishings, Telvanni or Dark Elf stuff in general, that we are probably going to the Telvanni Peninsula, since I feel like Hammerfell won't be touched too much by ZeniMax Online Studios, since Todd Howard may have stepped in and told the ESO team to not touch the Hammerfell area, as Elder Scrolls 6 is currently in production now for a potential Hammerfell storyline. So, I'm going to place my bets on the geographical location of the 2023 chapter, or at least story, being either in the territory of House Doran or the Telvanni Peninsula, and if it's not a Dark Elf chapter, I will shave my head. Next, I want to talk about a couple other hints, specifically in regards to the next major feature of 2023 for the Elder Scrolls Online. Going back to that studio director letter, Matt Fury hinted that the 2023 chapter in the second quarter will be accompanied by the quote-unquote most requested new feature by players. In response to UESP, I made my own list, but we can quickly knock out on this list dungeon leaderboards because Encounter lead designer Mike Finnegan in our ESOU podcast this past year said they had no intentions of making leaderboards for format content anytime soon. We can also knock out a new skill line or class or even race because the class and skill line and race systems aren't really new features. They're old, so Fear would have said additions to old systems rather than new features. I don't think additional housing slots, nor a combat tutorial, nor a trial group finder would be big enough, even less so than the Tales of Tributes feature from High Isle, to warrant being called a new feature of 2023 for ESO, despite perhaps being heavily requested by so many players for a long time. The reward system could be something here, as a previous customer survey for 2022 and recent ESO Stream Team meeting talks were heavily centered on the topic of the in-game reward system within ESO, but I suspect this too is not it. PvP hasn't gone much either in the past however many years, so a new PvP format or feature, like a team versus team format in Battlegrounds or something, that has been heavily requested too, but due to the server re-architecting in conjunction with the fact that the new server hardware for consoles and PC Europe have not yet arrived, makes this even less likely, because the devs in the past have said that once performance is fixed, they'll then focus more on features or additions to PvP. So yeah, it's a bit bad, but that leaves us with two highly possible features for ESO's 2023 chapter, and that's overlay difficulty and spell crafting. Overlay difficulty, or rather the difficulty of questing content and so forth, have been brought up an innumerable amount of times, so much so that even gaming journalists have asked creative director Rich Lambert if ESO will ever be somewhat challenging in the uninstanced areas excluding trials and dungeons. There are plenty of people who want an option to actually fight a climactic fight with an evil quest boss and not kill them before they finish their evil monologue, and the fact that there is a troubling absence of a transitional bridge between the overwhelmingly easy overlaying content and the intermediate or extremely hard content in the form of trials, dungeons, and arenas is part of the huge retention problem for ESO, and also a problem factor in the unapproachability to ESO's unique combat system is pretty big. So, however, I'm not sure on the technical difficulties of making overlay difficulty settings possible, because this is not a single player game where you can just change the setting anytime, especially when you take into account how instancing and such work in the overlay of ESO. I think the easiest band-aid solution would be to give players a debuff if they toggle a setting to make overlaying challenging, but in my opinion that'd still be a bit lame and sort of what players are doing now anyway, like being naked and still killing things, or not putting champion points in and still living. So this is sort of a weird area, and I'm still not sure if this alone would be a noteworthy feature for 2023. I mean, this is a year where ESO needs to make a decent start of a comeback to stay relevant in the MMO space after the disastrous updates 35 and 36 of 2022, compounded by older issues that are still yet to be addressed. With the fact that the German Bethesda stream schedule has a rather esoteric looking chart for its January 31st stream after the global reveal, and that the drop reward for watching the Twitch Bethesda global reveal stream is a ritual casting emote with heavy hints pointing towards the Telvanni Peninsula we talked about earlier on in the video, I think spellcrafting will be the most likely new feature for ESO's 2023 chapter. And if it isn't, I'll get a piercing. Before we end the video, I want to talk a little bit about what spellcrafting would look like, because a lot of people have said it has to be super bad, inherently to not be OP or unbalanced, but what I think could be interesting for this concept of spellcrafting aligns closely with what Wrath of Innos said on the forum post. He's also an ESOU professor in regards to what ESO spellcrafting would look like within the context of combat balancing in game. Spellcrafting cannot be that open-ended. It will certainly have bounds on what can be made. Lightning is the worst in this case, as none of the weapon lines or classes have a good single target spammable. With spellcrafting, we could theoretically make one combining runes like shock plus instant plus single target plus ranged, and then use it with any weapon type or build. And why stop at one? You could also make a single target shock dot, a lightning ground AoE dot, etc. Slot a few crafted spells along with Endless Fury, Lightning Flood, Thunderous Rage, and Boundless Storm. Now you could have fully cohesive Electromancer build, and sets like Netch's Touch become viable. Think about extending this to other builds and sets. Maybe a Necromancer wants to run Elemental Catalyst but prefers Stampede over Wall of Flame, or uses Detonating Siphon over Mystic. No problem. They can just craft a spell to fill the element gap. Or maybe a sword could slot EC, or Elemental Catalyst, with Firewall and with Liquid Lightning and a custom Frost spell. It could open up so much more build freedom. It wouldn't even be difficult to balance. Crafted spells could just use the baseline values of standardized skill types without any additional effects. This would mean that similar class, weapon, and guild skills would generally perform a little bit better. For example, someone could craft a single target magic dot similar to Entropy, 20 seconds, 2 times spammable damage, but it would not get the extra morph effects or Mage's Guild passives. It's still useful because some players may want multiple dots like this, while others may not want to join the Mage's Guild or collect books. And I think the concepts he's throwing out here is pretty good, pretty good for not completely drawing off combat balance in either PvP or PvE. I think making things more interesting and more open-ended, making things not more viable but more optimal in some cases with what he with matching specific types of damage with specific item sets is a really good thing to kind of think about. I think spellcrafting is not impossible to implement and also balance for ESO. It'll definitely take some effort, but I also think there should be also some like fun elements. Like it shouldn't just be about, you know, optimizing the numbers and stuff like that. I think it should also be about comfort play, but it should also be about fun, like the element of fun. I think some, you know, in the last line, Wrath of Innocent, I think in that forum thread, people have mentioned like water walking. You know what I mean? I'm just like, wow, how about a fun spell that lets you, I don't know, just run or walk on land, even on your mount. Not land, sorry, water. Like you don't have to dismount. You don't even have to swim. You can just run on water or something like that. Something fun, something that's just not like too serious. But you know, if you want to take it seriously, you can. I think spellcrafting is definitely the most likely requested new feature, but we'll see because we will see on I believe the 25th. Which is Wednesday of January, this coming week. So yeah, let me know down in the comments below what you think is a new feature and where you think we're gonna go. I think, in summary, Telvanni Peninsula and spellcrafting. And it makes sense to me if we are going to the Telvanni Peninsula because the Telvanni are extremely power-hungry they're really edgy Dark Elf culture, and they are really focused on gaining power for themselves and attaining knowledge, which is linked with, you know, Hermaeus Mora, and that may somehow play into a spell crafting system. So I think this is all starting to make sense, unless they're going to throw me off completely to get a shave and a piercing with a Redguard chapter. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Stay safe, have fun, bye.